Okay, hello everyone. This is Sharonda, and this is my podcast as well as my YouTube channel, Magic Mind Medium. And so, I am going to do a spiritual subject for today, and I was trying to ponder as to how we're going to turn labeled. I got a couple of things scratched out here, so I decided to go with um, death cycles of life. All right. So, what exactly is the death cycles of life? Do you believe that life happens, that death is predestined, and we do have cycles, or there is some type of art or pattern to death? Um, so, first, I'm going to start off with the verse, but before I proceed, I would like to state that this podcast as well as this YouTube channel is for informational, entertainment, and sometimes educational purposes. It just depends on which episode or what podcast you may listen to, okay? So, in other words, it's optional, all right? I do have to stress that. So, in regards to life and death cycles, is there art to death? Is there art to this life experience? Are we predestined for our life? And can we cheat death? If that makes sense. So I pull up this verse here in reference to sacrifice. So according to the Bible, Abraham was commanded by God to sacrifice his son Isaac. It says in Genesis 22, God tells Abraham to sacrifice Isaac on Mount Moriah. Abraham binds Isaac to an altar, prepares to slay him, but is stopped by the angel of the Lord. The angel tells Abraham not to harm Isaac, and a ram appears and is sacrificed instead. So, it goes on to mention that the story of Abraham and Isaac is often misunderstood and can raise questions about God's nature. However, it can also be seen as a demonstration of Abraham's faith in God and God's provision. Abraham was willing to give up his son because he trusted God to bring him back to life. It goes on to mention that the context, the story takes place in the Bronze Age when human sacrifice was a common belief in the Near East. Abraham likely believed that God might require a human sacrifice as he did nearly everyone around him. So, saying that to say, do you believe in death cycles in regards to this life experience? Do you believe that our deaths are predestined or pre-planned, premeditated even? I'm going to tell you that I honestly feel that way. I honestly feel as though God gives us precognition, premonition, feeling of deja vu when when your memory comes to the surface. Because I do feel as though, being that I've gotten older, you'll begin to see how God channels certain energies through people in history, and it will become apparent to you, and you'll get that sensibility as to what that is. So, I mentioned on last week or maybe even the week before last in regards to if you go back and review recordings of people, right, and how spirits works and things of that nature, oftentimes prior to someone making a transition, premonition, prophecy speaks through them prior to. And oftentimes people don't pay attention because, we take it, we make light of a situation, or we may become desensitized to it, or whatever the case may be. But I think the seriousness of it is such as that, So, that being said, I'm actually going to say that I do believe that there is an um, a pre-plan or arrange to transition, spiritual transition. That's what I'm going to say. Um, I think oftentimes it will humble you. I think many times people feel as though if I can get out here and I can do things in order to make myself more approved, then, I can cheat death. Well, as it has written down that from my understanding, there's concerns about what you can do in terms of when it's your time, ultimately, which is true. But I do believe that birth and death is predestined. I do feel that way. As for those who may be listening in or tuning in, the movie Final Destination is an example of that. I do believe that there is an art to it. I also believe that you can cheat or even defy death or have it bypass you. Pass over you is what I feel, right? So that's why you want to be very conscientious about who you allow to drive your vehicle or who you allow to stand in your place or you try to stand in someone else's place. Because oftentimes when you're trying to fill someone else's shoes, you may not know what shoes that you're filling, right? So we want to jump up and, out of ignorance and want to be something that we're not. You don't know what you're signing up for, ultimately. It's the thing. And so saying this to say, mistaken identity cases and things like that, I mean, you have heard them in the past, and you may continue to hear of these. You want to not take the brunt of someone else's forbidden sins, transgressions, or whatever the case may be, right? So I pulled up some more information here. It says the Bible describes the final destination for believers as heaven, where they will be with the Lord Jesus Christ for eternity. Some Bible verses that relate to the final destination includes Matthew 25, where it describes the Son of Man sitting on his throne in heaven, separating people into those who are sheep and those who are goats. John 3:35 through 36 states that those who believe in the Son have eternal life, while those who do not obey the Son will not see life. The next one, which is John 5:28 through 29, describes how those who have done good will be resurrected to life, while those who have done evil will be resurrected to judgment. Romans 8:29 states that those who are foreknown by God are also predestined to be conformed to the image of his Son. So I'm not going to go too much into a lot of these, but I am on a website here, which is Ananda. Ananda is a shaman, or what have you, that teaches yoga and different affirmations and chants and things to rebuilding of the spirit. So there's a question here, and I'm going to read this verbatim, and I do apologize. So it mentions that it is said that this is the question, I'm sorry. Is our birth a contract we agree upon? Is birth and death predestined? That's what it has mentions here. Then it goes on to say, it is said that all souls agree on a contract before taking birth on earth. Then is the date of death and the way the soul will depart are all predestined? Do souls agree for violent deaths in accidents and other natural disasters? And if yes, then are they prepared beforehand in some way for this experience? Can you suggest some good books for more information on this? So this is what a question that was posed to on this particular website. I'm going to personally tell you that I feel as though, I read some research in psychic books and stuff about life themes, and I think that's going to be a subject I may touch on tomorrow. Life themes. Some people may refer to them as life paths, life themes, or what have you, where to not make life so hard. Some people just agree to sign up for versus this. You fill in the blanks. So some people may be predestined to sign up for certain things in this life experience, right? And so this is something they already have pre-planned. This is the life they chose. They may choose to come here in a life of poverty or want to aspire to be great or what have you, right? Because this is what they chose to do. So I do believe that even in situations where it mentions about accidents, natural disasters, and things of that nature, I honestly feel as though you have some knowledge prior to, these things occurring. You are aware that if you drive a vehicle, potentially you could get in a car accident, whether you travel across the city, across the state, across the country, you are at a risk one way or another. It works the same way with natural disasters and surgeries or anything that could pose a risk or transition, okay? So this is basically what this life is all about. We are already aware that some things pose a risk, all right? So that's just by common sense, common knowledge. But I think to live a life, to come here, such as someone that is in agony and suffering, and it's just one trauma after the next, the next, the next. Well, I can honestly say that by way of a curiosity, now that I've gotten older, I think reincarnation presents energies, particularly when someone is curious or someone wants to know about something. And that curiosity will present itself by way of a birth or a child. So you may be the type of person who have issues with race. You may have a child that comes, that turns out is very, may exhibit some racist tendencies or even behaviors or whatever the case may be. And I know they say children cannot come here racist or gay and all of that. I beg to differ. It was a time before when I didn't have children, I would say those things. Sometimes it takes actually going through things, because oftentimes we will recite information based on what has been told to us to say, but to actually go through the storm, you will see to the contrary, all right? So getting back to the question, so it says, is our birth a contract we agree upon? Is birth and death predestined? So we're going to go through the answer here. So it says, does the soul agree to a contract when coming down on earth? From what is known from Yogananda's teachings, he mentions he don't think so. At least it's not a freely given or withdrawn agreement. So it mentions the contract is rather forced on him by his own karma. The soul might intuitively realize what he's getting into. And when he enters the world as a newborn babe, the first thing he does is cry because, as Yogananda explains, that he knows what trouble he has to face here in the tough material world. He has to agree there is a compelling karmic setup for the time and circumstance of the birth. There is little to agree upon. It's rather like mathematics. A plus B results in C. So it mentions in the autobiography of Yogi, the child is born on the day and at that hour when the celestial rays are in mathematical harmony with his individual karma. So it says, if the souls from the astral worlds choose their parents and country, etc., is it karmically latent choice? Let me explain something to you, what I feel in regards to that, because this is so funny. I mean, I did not even read this. And it's just like it's presenting information that I have already formatted. And could that very well be because of, like, if you're the type of person, you have a curiosity into certain things, and so some information may be preloaded, artificial intelligence, preloaded to what you will already say. Could that very well be it, based on what you already believe? I don't know, but I found it to be very, very, All right, so getting back to this here, it just pretty much asks a question as to what I mentioned about if you have a child, if you're the type of person where you had a hard time with dealing with certain things in this life experience. Let's just go out on a whim. Maybe a situation where you may be someone who struggled with weight, right? You struggle with your weight primarily as a child, as a teenager, into adulthood, right? And let's say you may have a child with someone, and this child may have weight issues as well, but it's to the contrary. This child may have anorexia, bulimia even, or some type of disorder or syndrome or disease or what have you, where they can't maintain weight. They may have issues with it in the opposite sense of the matter. So can we honestly say, in relation to correlating this as in the main subject that I'm making, or the main point that I'm making about death, can we honestly say that this truly happened by design, or was it something that was made or, quote, forced on someone to make certain things apparent, right? Like, say, for instance, if, you have some people that may have not come to grips with the reality of how things really are. And so as a result, the mating of having a child that struggled with the same thing to the contrary, can we honestly say that this is actually, quote, God, or this is man playing God? And so my thing about this is, I think it's all one and the same, to tell you the truth, because he will give you a sensibility to where you will gain that understanding about spirits and how energies are and how energy spaces are and how they operate as such. And I think by way of psychology or what have you, once you get to a certain period of time in life, that is the, what do I have mentioned before? I said death by design, and then I scratched it out and I said art of death, and I scratched it off and I went with death cycles. So I'm going to go back to the second title, art of death. How, one can cheat death or what have you. So I do believe that is so. So it says, The only ones free of such karmic compulsions are the avatars, which are truly free souls. Again, from the autobiography of a yogi, it mentions that Jesus knew from the beginning the sequence of his life. He passed through each event, not from himself, not from any karmic compulsion, but solely for the upliftment of reflective human beings. It mentions, but normal people of all of us don't enjoy that freedom. According to our karma, we are placed in a certain environment with a certain state of health circumstance with karmically ordained parents and so on. Much is determined by our unsatisfied inner desire, which make us choose. When we are a tiny embryo in our mother's womb, our karmic pattern determines how our body and brain grow. The pranic electrons in the spermatozoa and ova, for instance, guide the embryonic development according to a karmic design. All right. So it says that's what concerns birth. When it comes to our death, however, things are very different. Certainly, there is a karmic design, a probability for our way of dying, but it can definitely be changed. It's not a fixed contract. Nothing is predetermined. As it mentions here, every karmic pattern can be changed. The human being has free will, which is given by his simultaneous with the soul and revocable never. With every action right now, we are creating our future. Swami Kriyananda taught that all life long we prepare our death for the way we die for our final exam. Fortunately, our karmic date and mode of death can be changed not only by our actions, but also by grace received from God or a great saint. It mentions devotion burns up karma as it attracts grace in the autobiography of a yogi. It says we read a story in which Mahavatar Babaji dissolved the karmic death of a devoted disciple. The master suddenly seized a burning log and lightly struck the bare shoulder of a chela who was close to the fire. So I'm not going to read a lot of this, but it goes on to mention that a person was disfigured on their hand and things of that nature. So I just put it this way. If you look at this here, because there is an Ananda course in meditation, it's a 10-week course, and this gives the, teachings of this yogi, have the Kriya Yogi. I honestly feel as though that is a spirit, is what it lets me know. I think you are able to get enlightenment from, because I've heard of this person, some time ago. In previous research, I do feel as though he's very wise and very intuitive or what have you, and give you enlightenment about some things that you may not even fathom. I do feel that way. But in terms of death, I do believe that you do have more influence on death in terms of things that you are able to control. That I do believe. Things that are out of your control, you do have control still, but you have to be aware, because it's more covert when it's out of your control, if that makes sense. And that's the premise of how you could be deceived into a spiritual transition. So if you stay in accordance with source and stay focused, I think you have control even in situations where you may not have control, if that makes sense. Right? Because I do feel as though the angel of death, there's a pattern to death, there's a cycle to death, that death is predestined. And do I feel as though someone could be sacrificed in someone else's place? I do feel that way. I'm going to give you my wholehearted opinion. I do feel that way. I do feel as though the angels are not perfect, if that makes sense. And I think some transitions may occur because of people feeling as though someone is trying to divert death towards them. That's what it lets me know. So you will want to wear symbolism. You will want to make it apparent and make it known that that is not your intentions of diverting any negative energy towards anybody, right? Because you got all different types of energy spaces out here, and and they just pop off, So you have to be very, very careful who you convene your energy with, who you share that energy space with. Because I do feel as though many transitions that have occurred, black or even white, was because of mistaken identity, if that makes sense. All right. So I am going to conclude this episode of Magic Mind Medium spiritual subject, speaking on death cycles. Is death predestined? If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, you're more than welcome to comment below. Until then, have a safe and wonderful day.